Yeah. So let me kick off by ask you a question. Who are you?
Yeah, yeah. That is an interesting question. I'm a designer dash artist, like in our agency. Like the official job title, right, is like strategic designer, design director. We're working a lot with enterprises, helping them always like kind of like get to the next level in design from where they stand, and learn how to like by that, like, right, you learn one, you go a level up and you're better at like integrating design, and then you have also learned how to learn your way to the next level. So that is something I'm looking at in many different contexts, from enterprise to like personal, like transformative learning, basically. And how does that work, and how do we get to it? And yeah, I think from there and from this approach, a lot of stuff spins off, like working a little more in the futures field and those kinds of things. So like an adventurous creative, I would say. Maybe if it comes down to who are you, I've answered a lot of like, okay, what do you do? But maybe that's also an interesting information.
Yeah. So it's also interesting to me to see always like how people answer that question.
Yeah.
From what level, do they answer it from have, do, or be?
Yeah.
What is design though?
What is design? That is an interesting question. I think that's where we started out, because we stumbled upon this point of like, okay, design as applied philosophy.
Yes.
Right, and kind of like this was kind of in the quote. So maybe we have to like recite the context here. I copied it just to have it available. So the quote that you put out on Facebook was from, I have to pronounce him right, Soichiro Honda, right? The founder of the Honda Corporation. And the quote that you posted was, "Action without philosophy is a lethal weapon. Philosophy without action is worthless." And I think from there, like most of what I put in the comment under that, my reaction was like, yeah, design as applied philosophy. I'm starting to think about this again, and think about it. Like I've thought about it for some time, and then I was like busy with other topics, and now it's coming. It's kind of like coming back up, and to see this connection between like mind and manifestation, like making something, bringing about deliberate change in the world. Maybe something like this could be a rough definition for the big term of design. I also want you to talk a little bit, but I want to share one more thing that I've just like recently picked up at an IXDA London event. And the sentence was, what is design? So design is to design a design in order to produce a design. Design is to design. So it's the category of design, the action of design, the plan for something that you would manufacture, and the final product. So what is design?
Yeah, maybe
what kind of design do we want to talk about?
Maybe that was the talk that I delivered, because I delivered a talk called System of Systems for Designing Systems. Right?
Okay.
So you've got this idea of philosophy, right?
Yeah.
Philosophy, which is like a metaphysical design.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got the actual like operational design system. Okay. And so the philosophy is like set of principles that are guiding the design decisions or shaping the design decisions. Then you've got the operational, which we might get into some of the tooling and processes and so on. And certainly, when Elon Musk talks about we need to spend more time designing the machines that build machines, right? So it's that machine that builds the machine. So like something like a design system and so on. And then you've got the actual final, what they call design, as in like, that's a nice car design there, as in like, you know, the final car. You've got the design of the thing that is also like actually doing something. So when we use kind of like a tool, like a smartphone, you know, we can actually process a lot of stuff with it. So it's a system of systems to design systems. That's really how I've evolved to think about all of this. And in many respects, when I'm working on UX design and all these kind of things, I'm working a lot on the metaphysics of it, the philosophy, and shaping the philosophy of it to then enable creation of systems that then other designers can use to execute on individual products and services from.
Yeah, like a higher vantage point in that. But in this, like it sounds a little bit like the especially the bottom part. Like there's a 3D manifestation of design that might or might not be physical, right? But often it ends up somewhat being physical. Like even if you have something like a delivery service, you would have food on the table in the end. So very often it's like the end. It's like the end point. Then the process to get that is, I think, also designed when we're talking about like stuff like service design, right? Like our whole like organizations and business models. There's also a sense of design, but it's not like you can. You can't like have it like, okay, this is the business, or look, this is the kind of like you have the app, but not even the app is physically manifest, right? It's just a couple of, there's somewhere a point where it like starts to dematerialize, and then you have bigger patterns like a purpose, or like even brand is more like of an idea, right? Like where you have like a very conceptual but still manufactured level. And then there's the question, okay, how do we build all those how do we build all those tools, and how does it become informed from our idea of the world, where I'm also back like on the philosophy level. And I think that was a question that came up, like how do we make better philosophies, and how do we learn to manifest them better. But maybe we stay a little bit on the plane of like trying to find like the moment where this, like which moment does philosophy for you become, like, let's say 1 degree more tangible? I feel there's like degrees of like how tangible things are. And where would you say philosophy comes in first?
Philosophy does come first because you literally cannot orient yourself without philosophy. Yeah. But that thing around physical, right? If we talk about 5 human senses, taste, touch, hearing, seeing, and what's the other one? Right. Always forget the 5th one, but you get the point. Smelling. Yes, exactly. So any one of those interaction types is physical.
Yes.
So when you're hearing Alexa speak, that's still a physical interface. People talk about it as a service, right? Because it sounds a bit more nebulous, right? Oh, service is this sort of intangible thing. There's nothing more tangible than you hearing my words here and me hearing your words and seeing your picture. There's 2 senses. Yeah,
I want to make a distinction there. I get what you're saying. Like you're coming very much from the dimension of like sensual input, which is indeed very real.
So that's the physical, but that's the 3rd layer, right, of design, that is output. Yeah. Before that, there is the functional layer that is you know, sort of like systemic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And before that, there is the metaphysical or philosophical layer that is intangible. Having said that, this has to come first, then this comes, then this outputs. Yeah. And most of the time, people like to do it backwards. Yeah. I was like, well, let's look at the physical things we want to see and then derive systems from it and so on. It's a sort of, perhaps, you know, like in some sort of Garden of Eden, the first humans ever would have kind of walked around and gone, oh, what's this? What's this? What's this? And they would have tried to kind of reverse engineer world from just observations and so on. But really, we've had so much learning and wisdom that's been, you know, derived by different people that we can tap directly into that wisdom and go like, we can actually work from first principles of metaphysics or first principles from physics and so on, and leverage that and stand on the shoulders of giants, as opposed to try and reinvent the warm water, which is a bit of a kind of silly thing to do.
Yeah, well, it's like it's branded warm water, so it's definitely new, right?
Placebo is a real thing. Placebo is a real thing too.
No, I completely I see. I do see what you mean. There is a thing, and I've discussed this with a couple of people. I think it kind of goes into both directions, because I feel like that like a primal part of ourselves as human beings, and how our cognition works and how our sense making works, like just the capacities that we have, are very fixed. And this Garden of Eden thing works perfectly. You don't have so much complexities of civilization in there. You know, you don't necessarily have a role and things, and you also have those inputs that you've been talking about, those sensual inputs. But there's one thing that is very essential to our cognition, is actual things. I'm not talking about the voice of Alexa. I'm talking about the device, right? Which is not the whole service of Alexa, because they talk to you from a couple of devices. And so the voice becomes a different abstraction level. And there's something in the role of design that is also it's kind of like bringing those things together and like manifesting something in order to even experience different modes of thinking, or different levels of thinking, of cognition, like having new ideas on a philosophical level. I mean, that's like for the most part, that's what speculative design is always trying to do. I also kind of feel it's a little funny, but there's exactly this thing. Sometimes you have to manifest something from this idea of philosophy also down to either have a conversation or some kind of value exchange on a physical level, like matter, like real matter, not even sensual experiences over time, but a thing that's there.
Yes. The thing is quite necessary, just like the subject is necessary. And that kind of subject-object reality has been somewhat frowned upon, but it's also somewhat integral to understanding like how the world works. So talking about integrality, there is integral theory, which brings us the quadrant, okay?
Yeah.
And the quadrant, have you come across this before?
I'm quite familiar with that. Yeah, Ken Wilber, right? Like I actually think when I came across your work or your general like presence first, and I heard this like, the Fresh Mind program is based on this integral theory, that made me more curious, and like over time I have looked into this. So
but if you think about design, right, so there is the I the person
Yeah.
who is perceiving, so who is living in this we realm, okay, of other people, and what it's interacting with is objects, the individual it, and those objects are interconnected somehow, just like in the we space, they're interconnected on the, you know, some sort of networks of systems and so on, right? So that's what this is talking about. Now, so this is all internal, and this is external. Yeah. And then this is singular, and this is plural. Yeah. So when we're talking about integral design or anything like that, you've got the idea that we got to take care, like we're basically designing for this space here. Yeah.
Yeah.
got to
like, so you can orient yourself in the world in between all those all those relationships, because that's basically where you are, right?
Exactly. And it's actually, you know, it's the I, which also sounds like the I, the perceiver, right? The I is the one that is perceiving all of this and receiving all of this, and so on. So it's and what we are having, right? We're having right now in the world, we're having a major shift in the we space. We may have a major shift in the it space in the terms of products, and we certainly have a major shift in its spaces, right? The systems and so on. And the I is being affected a lot by this kind of reverse impact at the moment of these kind of things. That's why a lot of people feel the change, right? Because the change is coming from all sorts of angles at them, right? And they're kind of thinking, I better adapt myself to all of this new change, because if I don't, I will not exist anymore. I will not be seen anymore. Yeah. So, and I will not be relevant anymore. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. And then what is relevant to the I? Yeah. What does the I want these days? What do I want? Yeah, maybe that should be like somebody probably is already registered as a trademark, but like something like I want. Yeah. Yeah, like that. That becomes the core question. What do I want? You know? And and it's
how do you answer, like, how do you answer that, right?
Well, so here's a question then that comes off of that, is like, who knows, right? And it's like, what do I want? Who knows? The answer is I. Okay, which is like kind of takes us back to a bit of like trans-rational and so metaphysical and even mystical, like Illuminati, right? But like the I, the observer, knows really what I want. Okay, your big self with a capital S knows what your little self knows. Yeah, which is the role of spirituality. S here is for spirituality. And this is why Carl Jung, you know, as a psychologist, you know, always said that God, often the time, this is God, right? Referred to also as God, that you can't just kind of throw God out the window, because if you do that, then people don't know what I want, you know? And that becomes a very sort of oppressive society and depressing society, you know, in the we space. You know, because people are disempowered. Yeah, this gives you power. Okay, because it's like in the self is like the I is like inside here. Yeah, it's like I know, like in the heart space, in the soul space, But if I get input from loads of other people telling you, don't do this, don't do that, stay at home, do this, don't move, don't go, la 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 la, you basically get gaslit by the society, and you're like, maybe I don't know, but really I want, and also like I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, this all makes perfect sense. It's just that to other people, it doesn't necessarily make so much sense because they haven't got to that level of self-contemplation. Self, who am I? That's why I asked you, who are you? And you answered to me from like be, do, have level. You answered from here. But I'd love to see you answer from here.
Yeah. It is, I do completely get what you're saying. I try to also answer the being like either I don't have a good answer, but it's really like for me, like at currently where I'm at in my life, I have the good feeling that I'm not like even if I'm telling you what I do, that is currently what I am. There is no, like, maybe it's a weird way to describe it, but there is no external pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's good.
Coming like what I am, like I'm completely with you, and on this level of identity. I have this connection to spirituality that you're talking about, that perfectly works for me. The funny thing is that we've tried to talk about philosophy, and we've come to this level of spirituality and being. Right? Like, which is probably like similar, and it's like all like it's non-material, but is it the same? Is this spirituality that you're talking about the generally same as philosophy? Can you get there through philosophical work?
I personally, that this is my understanding, that philosophy is spirituality. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're talking about here, it's like what's going on within me. It's like in my own reality, my own life experience. Because if you look at like user experience design, it's like a person, I, interacting with an object, it. Okay. That's all UX is. Okay. UX is there as a result of this subject object interaction. Yeah. Interaction design. That's why interaction design is so integral to UX design. It's like UX is a big scheme thing, and then UI is a subset of that, and interaction design is inside it. You can't sort of decouple it. Yeah. And so I think that's why a lot of people ended up confusing that. It's like, oh, UI is UX. It's like, that's true, but not completely true, because like just like when you say you are a designer, that's true, but you're also something greater than that, which is, you know, people talk about human. It's like, we're not humans. We are human beings. Yeah. That is often dropped as a word, but if you swap that around, what you end up doing is you end up being human. Okay. Now you are starting to actually align this. Instead of what I have, like sketch tool, I do with that create UI, and what it ends up being is an app. Instead, you start asking questions. What is this? What is this that I'm making? What is it? right? And when you start thinking about it as a sort of more like a living organism, you start realizing that that is the thing, this sits there, and it's an integral part of this relationship and interaction that is also enabling both of these things to grow and become bigger and transform themselves into bigger things. That's why the best experiences are the ones that create a transformation, an upgrade in humans. So humans are not really looking for experiences. They're looking to be more than they are today.
Yeah, finally, yeah. Might be through the, like, sometimes it's also through the, might be through the doing level, where you just want to like increase. I like to like always refer back to Marshall McLuhan. You probably know him. Like the guy who wrote "The Medium is the Message," and he was like, in his idea of a medium, what he defined as a medium was like, the first thing was, oh, you can look at, you don't have to watch the programming on the television, you just watch for the even the existence of the infrastructure of television and what that does to society. That was his first shift.
Yes.
The second shift that I find is extremely interesting, that where a lot of people like stop, I think also like stop getting McLuhan, which is perfectly fine because sometimes he's all over the place. His idea that a medium was everything that extended our abilities as a human. Like even a train would be a medium, right? Yeah. Because it extends my ability to go other places in a shorter amount of time. That is something that I see in your drawing here, how we can, like, either on the doing level, right, like even jobs to be done level, you can, like, that's kind of like a, well, it's by now it's still like a debate going on, but it's a pretty well explored space by now, this whole thinking, which is of course made a lot on the doing level. We still haven't quite gotten to the, like, I see like the explanation to like how you relate an object and a person, and what this transformational experience can be or could be. I don't know if you get to the if there's necessarily this moment of transformation for this person, like in a classical UX kind of sense, where I'm like, okay, like the transformation, and maybe that also the transformation I am sensing right now is more like the like in UX, we still look at the person a lot from like a consumer perspective, or from also a doing, like what are they trying to get done perspective, right? We might advertise from a have perspective and be like, oh, if you have this, if you have to have this pair of jeans, right, or you have this app, then you be somebody else, which usually also that can work. You can dress as a punk and you become more of a punk through that. Yeah. Because you're kind of like living it, and maybe there's something about this question, like, okay, there is certain things on the doing and having level that match my being level, but in the like current notions of like design, product design, how we look at it, we usually tend to look at the consumer side of things. We talk about customer journeys. We're hardly talking about human journeys, and I think that's interesting. That's what I'm interested in. Also in our talk, to get to this, to this point. Okay, how could we help people to find the being level, to get out of this consumer mode and get into a like, oh, I can take part in this game as a producer? Because I think even our own identities, like spoken like widely and broadly, are so kind of like primed in the direction of being a consumer, because all businesses, most businesses go like on a consumer level, or even if they help you do your work, they help you do work inside of a job, like inside of a system in a certain role where you're like, even if you're working, you can be like, oh yes, I am a consumer of work, right?
Yeah.
And then I do the work, and then I can be a consumer of money, and then I can finally buy that pair of jeans.
Yeah.
That gives me the illusion that from the having level, I get to a level of being. And I kind of want to like, if anything, like my question is like, can we go explore more on this? Okay, how do we get people like over the edge? I mean, you also like do a lot of coaching work, right? So maybe that's a medium that's more appropriate. I'm interested.
Yeah, so this is a very, very important thing to actually outline, that if we are, and so like I'm going to make a perhaps radical statement here, which is that consumerism even, or consumption is perfectly fine. Consumption is perfectly fine.
No, I don't say it's bad. I just see that we don't have a good balance between the two poles of consumption and production.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. And so what you actually find is that the best companies, and writing a whole book about this called Design Company, but the best companies think about certainly the company and the product of the whole company as one that's servicing customers from cradle to grave. Right? Now, what else is happening here other than an entire transformation, right? Human transformation that you know takes a human person through like 80 years of their life. Okay, so you've started watching Disney movies when you were something like 3 years old, maybe younger, and you are still watching them today. I know you, right? Even though it's first time we're speaking, and you will continue watching them until you die.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, I don't even take that statement personally. That's usually like, usually applies if you're like,
yeah, exactly,
in the Western world, right?
Now, the reason why I know this, I just happened to have also worked on Disney, right? As a product. But, you know, I know that through research, and they know that very well. And then they play the whole game. So it's like, I don't know, do you have children or not?
No.
So this is what happens when you go and watch a Disney movie in the cinema, right? You watch it, and then children are laughing, and parents are like, and then at some points, parents are laughing their asses off, and the children are going like, what are you laughing about, right? They don't get the joke, because the joke is pitched at this age here, and the children are here, and they're like, what these adults laugh? But like adults are like cracking themselves up.
But everybody had a good time, right?
Exactly, because the product is cleverly designed for multi-generational viewing.
Yes.
Okay. And so that way the parents continue going to Disney movies, and grandparents will go too, because it's like actually written for 3 sets of generations. It's perfect. That's a perfect product. That's why Disney keeps on having hits all the time, because you know, this is all integrated. And so, and then when you see, like, you know, Disney has the I level product, we level product, it and its, right? And they've kind of rounded that circle so well that it keeps going round and round. But when you say customer journey, okay, that straight away I hear a bit of a red flag, because customer journey and even all this kind of jobs to be done stuff, right? It's like, let me apply for a passport, for example. It's like, okay, well, I applied for a passport. I got my passport. And what? I'm done now?
Yeah.
What about my life cycle through the entire lifestyle of passport interactions? Yeah. And all that stuff. Most of the time, these things are not thought about at all, because people think, designers think that, you know, or businesses think and push that onto designers, that applying for a passport is a one-off thing, and that's that, right? It just happens in one snippet of time, and then that's that. But what about the customer's life throughout interacting with this particular thing here. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
more we can think.
That is not like, I would say, like, as much as I'm buying into and brought up like some critique of like stuff like customer journey and the jobs to be done, like where it like kind of falls short. You could use a good customer journey and say like, hey, we're experts here in this certain area around passports, and we have a certain service, and there's plenty of companies that like start with that one thing and then be like, okay, what is the actual journey, and what is the what is the job to be, what is the actual job to be done? And some guys say like, oh, I want to go a level higher and be like, oh, it's traveling and we take care of all your visas, and you can have different levels of abstraction to get to this like wider view.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think, and that's also quite interesting, because you don't start out, right? Like when we're talking about Disney now, we're talking about a long, long time of tradition.
Yes.
Which comes from a lot of movies.
It comes from a philosophy first.
Yeah, and but that is exactly the question, and the most interesting point of where philosophy comes into the game of Disney is at the start with Walt Disney making the first movies, like with comparably high tech, completely underexplored. Nobody had ever done anything like that before. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before. And he didn't have the strategic plan or the complete set of tools that Disney has today. He didn't have the insights, but he had and I think that's more of a like, either he had the thoughts or he had the level of being that he came from to even start kicking off such an enterprise that is very lovable.
Well,
like as a brand and as what the value they deliver, Disney also is a big love brand. And how do you like that's what I find interesting in creation. Like, okay, we can kind of like manage Disney. Disney is mostly managed, but Disney is not like the Disney you described that is super optimized, that needs a lot of creativity, but this creativity is managed and industrialized.
Yeah.
Completely. And they look at this journey, but the guy who started it, right?
Yeah.
The initial designer of this thing, and he might not even be aware that he's designing this worldwide enterprise at that scale, that his vision could be carried out long after the end of his lifetime. And I think this is a very interesting point to look at from the level of philosophy, if you don't have this big thing already, because it's easy to say, the philosophy of Disney, I can study that. It is manifest enough on many levels, physically and also in terms of culture, in terms of people talking about it. It's very, very real and can be studied. It couldn't at some point, but somebody still brought something into the world, and probably some of the most valuable parts were born from nothing.
Yeah. But like, if you say that Disney started with some movies that he made, then it started with this it right here, and he created like a little bit of it, right?
Yeah.
And then he served some eyes, okay? He served some eyes, and those eyes became we's, okay? Mm-hmm. And then as that kind of grew out, he created more of the it, and that started building the its, okay? So then it kind of feeds into more of the it, okay? And it grows more of the I, grows more of the we, and builds into more of the its, and so on. And then this thing kind of grows like that. But if we just continue designing this all the time and not take into account the rest of the quadrants, we fail, right?
Yeah.
So, but this thing, I here, if we're just designing for a speck in the lifetime of the I, those companies I submit to you are going to die out. Why? Because they're not serving customer life cycle. And life is an evolutionary progress upwards. That's how it should be. If it's downwards, people die, and then those people can't consume. Yeah. So this is why we are going to see more and more life companies emerge, whereas so far we've mostly had death companies.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanna put it that way, I'm not completely sure if this cradle to grave is a solitary pattern. I think it can be one pattern to emerge, and that is emerging. I'm still kind of like, I'm kind of with the also with the niche players, but yeah, once you're a really good company, you want to be alongside you want to be like a trusted companion for your clients, and if you can get to that level, that should be like, maybe it even is a good end goal, but yeah.
So
okay,
what then?
I'll leave that to you. Yeah?
So what then? I mean, please feel free to nullify this thinking, because either you want.
I just
so
tried.
you've got four choices. Right? You've got four choices here. One, you can disprove it. Okay, in which case I'm all open ears to listen to why that is so. Second choice is that you can agree and come on board. Okay. Third choice is that you might say, we don't know and I need to find out. That's fine. And I think that's about like the choices that you have there. But the point is here is that then what becomes as a sort of derivative from this going forward is, because it's about serving customers' life, okay, and helping it become better, then what we are here in the job of, what your job is life design. That's what you're doing. You're designing life.
Yeah.
Do you even recognize and realize this? Question to you.
Yes.
Good.
Very much.
Good.
The like we're mostly, and that's the interesting part in this, I'm still and I wouldn't choose necessarily between the four options. I just choose the fifth, like continue talking for a little.
Yeah.
Like my first reaction was to see, like, just to probe into it and be like, okay, what happens when I start with a really small niche business, right? Because like in the evolution of things, you usually don't start necessarily everywhere in the
so I've got an answer to that. What happens?
It wasn't even a question.
But okay. Yeah, but so but the thing is that all the niche businesses will be integrated into a life business.
Yeah, but is that necessarily like what I see there? Like there is, like, running a business through 80 years, the lifetime of a human being in itself is something that is maybe a thing for 1% of businesses and enterprises. So what I see this idea of a cradle to grave business as something to aspire to once you have sufficient traction coming from a niche, because you have to start somewhere. The first thing, and that's probably the thing where it comes back to philosophy, is like, okay, we're putting in, it starts with like some words, or it starts with a little direction somewhere, like not even, like you can't even paint it in the quadrants because it's so small, it's like beyond the resolution. And it kind of grows, and it can grow into something like this. What I see there, my question is, would it have to be, it can be a complete company. It does not necessarily have to be. You can do the same job, cradle to grave, in an ecosystem, in an ever-evolving ecosystem, because I think the same service, like the service that somebody wants at their cradle, is different from what they want if they are 20, right? Like that's clear. But 20 years later, the idea of the business and how it serves, like still serves somebody like at the cradle level, would also be wildly, completely different, down to the level of completely different business practices. Everybody needs like a completely different skill set, different media, different, because we're on this, still on this exponential, this exponential growth. And yeah, from there, I don't know if it's all going to be like, there might be some of those really big players, but even those, like, you know, the question is the business flexible enough to even serve across this like huge range? Because suddenly you also have, like, after 30 years of that business, if you're trying to start serving toddlers after 30 years, you have a completely reinvented company anyways for the toddlers, and you have to cover everyone in between.
Yeah.
That is a lot of shit to integrate into one company.
Yeah.
I think, and it's more, for me, it's more interesting to see the, I also have some slide here, like because when I'm looking at like such long timelines, right? Including disruptions, I have like one note here that I will show in the camera, and all that it takes is, it's like businesses starting to disrupt themselves and basically to give birth, right?
Yeah.
Like you have this incubator, you're making money, but you have to reinvest in your innovation practices massively to come out with the next generation and the next completely different practices, different channels, different activities to produce value. And this is, and I really don't know if that's something that we can think about this on an organization level. You can do that with Disney, and they would be like, they might have might profit a lot from like taking up those ideas. But what I'm also interested in is like, how do we do that on an ecosystem society level? Like same thing. But how can we get to the point that, because we don't have this, we exactly don't have this one singular eye that is happening from cradle to grave, but what we have, and I have another note here, what we have, of course, is culture where we have exchanges, right, in between the producers, like this. Cradle to grave is like a customer, like it's still a company serves the customer. But how, like, that is my interesting question. And that's a question for all companies. How do we get our people to be those producers of first their own reality, and then what that also means is like profound transformation in being like, oh, now I have the power to imagine, and maybe in a kind of like structured way, because it's grounded in some kind of philosophy, like or some kind of understanding of the world and my place in it. And then I want to bring something into the system, right? And I don't know if I even like the idea of those, like, I would like those organizations if they were very fuzzy at the edges, right? You don't know if it's like a Disney thing, or if it's actually like your local community kindergarten. And if they can really these can work together, right? And not only on the value extraction level, but in the, what do we bring to the table? Like you can just have some kind of idea. Don't think about the extraction of resources. Think about, and that's maybe where design again, or creativity, also entrepreneurship, like comes into, is this like, oh, we're creating something that we can give out as like creating value for other people, and also on this okay, cradle to grave, like on an everyday basis, like as opposed to art, which is often like becomes very exclusive and inspirational, but it like rightly so, refuses in and for itself to be useful, because then it's harder to be like to really create something beautiful, if you might want to make it really beautiful and useful. So art often goes away and just says, okay, it's just beautiful and it's just beautiful and that's perfect. But that's probably the thing here. And the question is like this what do you bring into the world? What do you bring in? And based on what thinking, based on what ideas, based on what identity, do you even bring stuff to the table?
Yeah.
That is for me the interesting question, and that's what I'm looking at in terms of like humans, right? Like I like the term human-centered design. You could say human being, but like really looking at the whole. Also, something that I've started is, not that I don't have notes on my wall, but maybe not the right ones. So I have to go to what I've started doing. And that is also into something I see in your sketches. I've started drawing the humans not as a head. I want them to be like fully embodied, right? Because otherwise we're a lot of this like, oh yeah, design thinking. What is the user thinking? We have this whole neuroscience, neurosales, marketing shit. Yeah. And it's all on the head and all done with the head. And that's something where I'm like, okay, but that's probably already something where I am kind of like coming from my philosophy and from my understanding, where I'm like, okay, I want to look at problems like from a more embodied perspective than even that. And it still works with the I and the it's and the we, but it still shifts the whole notion a little bit as what am I even thinking about when I'm talking about like a human being there, or a user or a customer, or however you narrow and you want to do it.
Absolutely. And so that all becomes a thing where it's, when you said human-centered design, right?
Yeah.
Again, most of the time, even you see me here drawing a human as like a little sort of like a Ludo player, right? Yeah. But actually what we're talking here about, what I'm talking about, is life-centered design. And this is, I thought I came up with this myself, but it's not. It's like actual, all that kind of ecosystems thinking is actually life-centered design. And so what we're actually talking about, what I'm trying to say, and it's like emergent conversation, is that this thing, cradle to grave, is not just relevant and appealing to just the I quadrant, but it's also appealing to and applying to all the 4 quadrants, right? So we've got to be thinking of the life cycle of the all of the life, and that becomes then real true life design practice, right? Not just for me, myself, and I, but me, myself, and everyone, and everything. And so that is how crucial designers are in all of this process. And to me, it always hurts me and pains me to see how much designers get just not valued in any of these processes, because usually just like businesses want to kind of push things onto design. Just design me this new thing, this it. And it's like, you don't need the it. You don't need more it.
Well, the problem is probably gonna like evaporate anyways 90% of the time of the project. So I'm with you on the it focus. Oh yeah, we're already
up on the hour. My brother, this has been a fantastic conversation, man. I'm really glad you instigated this. This is this is what I love to talk about, think about, and put it into practice, and if anything, maybe we're sort of starting to lead a little bit of a new wave of discussion, in design that is, if anything, overdue, No,
it's that's what I said at the start. It's time. There's like certain things that like need to be talked about, and B, that we need to do a lot of sense making of, right? Like I've been looking like into a lot of like also like futures literacy and like this whole scenario speculative design, and I'm like, not, it's just like the thing, like a lot of people are still like, a lot of people are more interested. A lot of people is absolutely confused about what that stuff is supposed to be. If it's like if is speculative design the solution, I don't think so, but it's maybe a part of the game. And this whole sense making, like, okay, how can we like make this contribution? That is something that I really, really care about, and yeah, happy to share those thoughts here.
Yeah, I think it's also valuable, valuable for us to just converse about this, because it's so little conversation about this being had, right? Yes. And I think a lot of us are like looking for sort of meetup groups or something, to discuss this, but like, who's talking about this? There's like 1, 2, or 3 people there. Maybe we can start some sort of movement here.
Yeah, I mean, like in the wide range, we have started like as a part or like a spin-off from our company. We are regularly doing events with different people, and we've launched a small kind of like side practice, which is called Future Tools Now, and it's exactly there for these kinds of like sense making of how can we like what are the tools that we need, right? Like what are the philosophies, but maybe also what's the method, or how do I give, like how can I pass on these philosophies? Because I believe we will not make this whole life design that you've said, like that you've pointed to, I don't think that we will have this created from a singular mind or even a group of like a small group of people that are the intelligent designers of the system, right? That's designed the system top down. But I think the real transformation, the real kicker is going to be if we can help like those people that maybe are thinking certain things, help other people at lower, right? Can Wilber's work around spiral dynamics, make the spiral work, just help everybody generally move up, and then see what emerges from there. And then you have really resilient systems, because nobody's going to defend their design because the design was never made, it emerged. And this kind of emergence, that's what I want to like talk about, but also like help bring forward like in the next probably couple of years. And
this is exactly what I'm absolutely interested in. And in many respects, I've been practicing, with clients, and, coming in and not prescribing solutions, but describing solutions. So guiding as opposed to shaping.
Yes, exactly. And this practice of getting more into the like away from this creativity. I've said this to other people recently. I want to throw out the whole idea of this individual creativity out of the window, and I only want to talk about emergence. Even if you're a single person creating your single thing, right? This artist idea. You would still be the one person who's present for whatever that you bring to the world to emerge. It's a lot about this, having it come from the higher self with a capital S, right? And then see what comes through. And then the next thing, like my next thing is like help other people, like have their things come through, and like take away the like all the crap that keeps us from doing that, really.
Exactly. My brother, I thank you very much for your presence and fantastic chat. I'm glad we recorded this, and see you soon again.